Hey guys, welcome back to Shortcuts to Success, where I, Randy Vieru, share with you how to achieve professional baker's recipes. If this is something that interests you, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so that you are notified whenever I drop a new recipe. Speaking of recipe, as you guys can see, this is not going to be one of those videos. I'm actually making a video today about kitchen essentials that are sure to help you be successful in the kitchen. I broke it down into 4 different components. I have the prep area, I have the cooking and baking area, I have the machineries, and I also have utensils. This is just a basic list that if you are getting more serious into baking and cooking, you should consider having some of these items, if not all of these items, in your kitchen. Obviously, as you guys can see, there are some items that are on a higher end price of things, and then there are some that are more budget friendly. I will have all of these items linked in the description below. These are affiliate links, so I do get a percentage of the sale, but you do not have to pay more than the actual price. So let's get started. For our prep, we have a cutting board. You want a nice heavy duty cutting board in your kitchen instead of let's say like a plastic one or one of those bendable ones, because this is a lot safer. No, this does not go in your dishwasher. Please do not put this in your dishwasher. You will completely ruin your cutting board. This is a great safe cutting board. It also lasts pretty long as you make sure to keep it clean and take care of it. The next item on our list are knives. You want to make sure that you have different types of knives for your kitchen. You want to have different knives in order to be safer. You definitely can't chop with this, and you don't want to be cutting into an apple core with this one, because where are you supposed to hold? As opposed to this one, if you want to core an apple, you can hold the tip and the blade and your apple. This helps a lot. And this, obviously, this is a boning knife. This is great for boning fish and chicken and any other meat that has bones. Next item on our prep, we have a scale. Now, a lot of different recipes call for different measurements, but on this channel, most of the time you will see me give you the recipe in grams in the metric system, just because it is a lot more accurate, and especially for baking, you want to be as accurate and as close to the recipe as you can, because then you'll be able to catch any mistakes. There's some recipes that are more forgiving than others, but in all, you want to be as accurate as you can be when you're scaling out a recipe. And so this is why I always have a scale. For our next prep item, although we do want scales and be as accurate as we want, we also have some recipes that call for teaspoons, tablespoons, which brings me to our measuring spoons. For the measuring spoons, it's a lot easier for some items, especially if you have a larger scale, unless you get now a micro scale, which is a smaller one. With the micro scale, you're able to scale some of these items on the scale itself. But if you don't have a micro scale, measuring spoons are the way to go. And then we also have measuring cups. Although I will be giving you recipes in grams and milligrams and things like that, there might be here and there some recipes that I will give in cups. And these are just great for measuring as measuring tools as well. When making pancakes every weekend or so, maybe like one weekend a month, I always use the 1/4 cup measuring scoop instead of like a ladle or anything like that. I just scoop it out and it makes the perfect size pancake all the time. And then for the other ones, depending on the recipe, I may need to use cup measurers instead of the scale. Next thing you want for your prep, when you're scaling things out, I usually use some glass bowls. I do have metal bowls as well. Up to you if you want to do glass bowls or metal bowls. The reason I prefer a glass bowl is because you can see what you're measuring, you can see what you're cooking, you can adjust depending on what you're looking at, as opposed to the metal bowls. They can go into your microwave. These can go in your microwave. The glass bowls or the metal bowls can be used for a bain-marie, and it's always good to have different sizes. That way some can fit on top of here, some you don't really need that large of a bowl It's just to scale something out. So you want different sizes of bowls that are preferably heat proof. That way you don't have to use multiple items. I prefer glass, that way you can see what you're doing and what you're making. Next, for prep, this is more of a prep and or storage, are these airtight containers, and they're different sizes. This is a great way of storing or scaling out your items. That way you don't have to use multiple containers. This is great because it is freezer friendly. Once you're done, whatever you have left off, you can put in here. Lids come with it. Just stack it in the freezer. It's great, stackable, saves you some space. You can also take it right out of the freezer, right into the microwave. Works perfectly. You don't have to switch out containers and things like that. So I really like these containers, but these are really good for storage and also for prep. Next thing we have for prep are glass measuring containers or measuring cups, and you do not need all 3 sizes. I actually have more sizes, believe it or not. I would say if you were to get just one, I would recommend a 2 cups measuring cup. It may not be as precise as the 5-ounce measuring cup, but it is in the middle. So if you have a smaller amount to measure, it works. If you have a larger amount, you don't save as much time as if you did have the larger. Like if you have to measure out 5 quart and all you have is this one, then you'll have to do like 2.5. Then yeah, but I would say all in all, this one is great. It is microwave safe. It can go in the freezer, it can go in the fridge, it can go in the dishwasher. I would recommend getting a glass cup instead of a plastic one, just because from my experience, the grades just like fall apart, especially if you put it in the dishwasher, which you probably aren't supposed to, but at the time I didn't know and I was feeling lazy, so I was putting it in the dishwasher and then it would just like all disappear, and then all you have is this plastic cup with a spout, which is not really necessary. I'm not really sure what you're doing with your cups, but you don't really need a random plastic cup just hanging around. So I would say glass, 2 cups, great measuring cup. So once we're all prepped and ready to go, we have our mise en place. The next thing that we do is either cooking or baking. Everything is cut up, everything is measured and scaled. You're ready to go to the next step. Here I have a hard bottom pot. This is a 1.5 liter pot. It is great for a bain-marie, which is a double boiler. You have some water at the bottom, you cook something in a bowl at the top. If making Swiss meringue, you can use either a regular bowl or you can use the bowl of your stand mixer. You can make some pâte à choux in there. You can make some custards and creams, and you want a hard bottom pot just because it helps to conduct the heat a lot better. You don't have some spots that will burn faster than others, and you don't want to use a non-stick for this because some applications, for example, if you're making pâte à choux, will tell you you need that film at the bottom, and you don't really get that with a non-stick pot. So you want a hard bottom stainless steel pot. You don't want it too big because then it's harder to transport, it's harder to cook, it takes you longer. And then we have a non-stick pan. This is great at high heats, but then you don't want it sticking. So it's very helpful, like if you're making a bananas Foster's or something. You can cook the caramel in there, you can add your fruits, perfect. Next, for our baking, we have some tart rings. Here I have 3 different sizes tart rings. And the reason I have 3 different sizes is because of different applications. Sometimes you want a single serving, sometimes you want a couple servings, and then here's the whole family, I would say. Depending on the application, you would get a tart ring that match, or again, if you were to buy just one, I would say to buy the middle one, just because depending on how big your family is, you may not need such a big one, and then depending on the amount of work, you don't want to make individual servings for everyone. But I use all 3, so I have all 3, and I really like these perforated tart rings because it really helps in the cooking of the tart shell. You get a more even baking, and also I feel like it has a more professional look to it. Like if you look at some pastries that you see online, a lot of them will have these little dots, and these are actually the tart rings that they use. And again, I will have all of the items that I've listed, I'll have the links to where you can purchase them in the description below. Next, we have some baking pans, and I have different sizes baking pans. Again, different sizes for different applications. You will hear me say that a lot because you don't have to get all these different sizes. These are, I'm showing you what they look like, but it's not necessary that you have all of those sizes, because maybe you are cooking for yourself, so you're only needing the individual size of things, or you're cooking for you, your family, and the neighbors, so you want like the larger items or the multiples. So this is just covering everything for everyone. So for our baking pans, we have an 8-inch aluminum, and then we have a 9-inch as well. In here, you can do some layer cakes. It's great when you have the more shallow pans, I would say, if you're doing a layer cake, because it cooks a lot faster. And then you don't have like a drier outer layer and then a softer center because it didn't cook properly. So if you are thinking of getting these types of pans, I would suggest getting the 3-inch height instead of the 6-inch height, because it would just take so much more time for it to bake your layer cakes. These are also pretty good for pies, a pumpkin pie or a sweet potato pie. I like to do my par baking from the freezer to the oven. So I prefer metal pans instead of glass pans, just because I'm so scared that one day I'll go from the freezer to the oven to do my par bake and my glass will just burst. So I would say if you're baking something, if you're par baking a tart, if you're not using a tart shell or a tart ring, I should say, and you're using this type of shell, I would say use a metal one. I have glass ones, but I barely use them because I'm scared. Next, we have a loaf pan. Loaf pans are great if you're making loaves. If you're making bread, different types of bread. If you're making sandwich bread, or if you're making brioche, I usually make my brioche in here. Or if you're making like a pound cake, this is great for a pound cake. I would say if you are getting one, get a smaller one or in between. I'll have something close to what I have because I'm not really sure where I got this one from, but I will have a link for this loaf pan. Finally, for the baking and cooking section, we have some baking pans or baking sheets, and here I have 3 different sizes, and I also have perforated ones depending on the application. You will need perforated trays or regular trays. You don't need the perforated trays because they're very specific. Depending on what you're making, they're very specific. You don't just have them in your house for kicks and giggles. Like you have them because you need them. So I would say these 3 are pretty standard. You have your full, your half, your quarter. These are pretty good. I've had them for a very long time. These can be used for any application, whether it is for savory or for baking. You can use these for baking chicken, some vegetables, or things like that. Anything that goes in the oven, you can use these. You can also make some roll cakes, have them in there, just spread them out. It's a great dish for that. It's a everyday dish, everything dish. Now on to our machineries. Here I have my first child, my baby, my KitchenAid Professional 600 series stand mixer. I love this thing. This is the lift. I don't like the tilt because I always feel like it's going to fall. At this point, you probably can hear my son, so do not mind that. He's just talking to his dad. So for the mixer here, this is great for when you're making larger batches of things that just aren't suitable by hand. If you're making a meringue, it's very useful to have a metal bowl instead of ceramic. And also this has a handle. It's great for those applications. And with this mixer, you get a paddle attachment, you get a whisk attachment, and you get a hook. So this is great for doughs like bread doughs, I would say. This is great for creams, for pâte à choux if you're making eclairs or choux puffs or churros. And then this one is great for meringues if you're making something that needs a lot of air beat into it. And it's great because with this stand mixer, you have 10 different speeds, and you can stir, or you can go ham and just whisk it really hard, especially if you're making meringue. Doing that by hand is just not the move. Had to do that in culinary school, never again. KitchenAid does offer different sizes for the stand mixers. You can do a 4-quart, a 5-quart, this is a 6-quart, and I think there's a 7.5, and those are like the house ones. I don't believe that there's one smaller than the 4-quart, but if there is, that's also available. I'm sure that it's a lot more affordable than this one. And that brings me to my next point, which is the price. So for this, it does come up a little bit higher than the usual kitchen appliance, I would say, but it is definitely worth it if you are interested in being a little bit more active in the kitchen. So I would say this is a great investment, but if you're not there yet, I definitely suggest doing the hand mixer. Also comes with some attachments. You get a whisk, you get some dough hooks as well. And it does have 5-speed for this one. However, you don't really get the stirring of it all. You don't really get slower. I would say this is great if you're making faster batters and meringues and things like that, but if you want something slower, like if you're trying to build strength into a dough, you may not be able to use this. You will definitely need a stand mixer. This is definitely a great beginner-friendly item. I still use it till this day. Sometimes you don't really need the bulky items, so this is a great thing to have in your kitchen, and it is a fraction of the price. Like, it doesn't even touch the price for this. So I definitely recommend starting out with this, and then later on when you are more into baking and you do really need it, then you can go ahead and purchase a larger stand mixer. And again, this is a larger one, but there are some that are 4 to 5-quart, and you don't really need to make so much product. I got this as my first Christmas present into culinary school. I thought that was the coolest gift, and I've had it ever since. It's been years. So I recommend this. It's long lasting, it's sturdy. I recommend the metal bowl because you can use it for different applications. And yeah, this is a cool thing. If you want to make doughs, if you want to save some time, I definitely recommend this guy. Our next machinery is a food processor. This is great for multiple applications. Yet again, I have different sizes of food processors actually, because over the years I've needed bigger and bigger. So I do have smaller one. I have a couple smaller ones, and then I finally bit the bullet and decided to get a bigger one that I barely used. So I guess I need to find recipes that are requiring a larger food processor. This is great when you are making dough like short crust or pâte brisée, pâte sucrée, pâte sablée, like different types of doughs that originally are made on a tabletop. Or if you're making pasta dough can also be made in a food processor. Please, if you're Italian, don't come for me. I'm sorry. So many people make it in a food processor instead of on a tabletop. And it just saves time. So yeah, food processor is great, and it comes with like a little grater and blade. You can even shave some things, and it's very sharp, so be careful. If you have made it this far into the video, please make sure to like it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Let's keep going to our utensils. First utensils that I want to go over are some rolling pins. Depending on how you feel, how your hands feel, there are different types of rolling pins, and they're all going to do the same thing. They're going to roll out whatever dough or item you put to roll out. They're going to do it. So it's all up to you, whatever feels good in your hands. I have 2 different types of French rolling pins. And then this one is actually, it comes with these measuring rounds that you can add onto the end of it. And then depending on what you're rolling out, you have the perfect size. You're always correct. It goes on both sides. It's just I have those off. These are 10, 6, 4, and 2 millimeters. So depending on what you're rolling out, if you're making some croissants, if you're making some puff pastry, It really helps when you're doing your turns, which is something that we'll go over in other videos, but if you know, you know. So rolling pins are great, especially if they have some help at the ends. That way you don't have to poke or measure with a ruler or things like that. So these are great to have in your kitchen. The next utensil is a mesh sieve, and this is great for sifting flour, any type of flour that you may have. It's great when you're making a cream that had eggs cooked in it. Sometimes the eggs will cook before they combine with the rest of the ingredients, so you want to make it nice and smooth by taking those out. It's great for chocolate. It actually helps to remove bubbles sometimes. Next item in our utensils series is a candy thermometer. This is great when making caramels and making any jams or things like that that require some long period of cooking, and also just specific temperatures. In culinary school, we had to make Italian meringue, and we had to measure the doneness of the sugar by hand. Now, if you've done Italian meringue in the past, you know that you have to boil the sugar and water to a certain temperature between 118 and 122 degrees. But at school, we didn't use thermometers for it. We did not have these. So we had to test it by hand. And what you do is you have an ice cup, you put your hand in the ice cup, and then you dip your hand and pull out some of the boiling sugar water and put it into the ice cup once again. And if it forms a tacky ball, then your sugar is ready. And that is how we made Italian meringue in school. Needless to say, we were not making Italian meringue every day. But at the same time, as crazy as that sounds, putting your hand into boiling water, you can do it. My hand is still attached, but I mean, why not just get one of these? And just FYI, when using a candy thermometer, always make sure to put it in at the beginning of the preparation instead of just plopping it into your boiling preparation, because you risk breaking the thermometer and just shattering glass and mercury all over your food. This also has a clamp in the back, so whatever you're putting into, you can clamp it and use it that way. That way you don't have to be there and hold the thermometer in the pot and you're not burning yourself. Next utensil, we have some wooden spoons. You can find these in a bag. Usually you can get these from literally almost anywhere, which is why you should never have metal spoons. Metal spoons are not necessary. I don't know why they're still out there. Maybe if you're cooking like in coal, then you need metal spoons. But if you're cooking in non-stick or in stainless steel, always use wooden spoons, because one, that noise is super annoying, and two, you're risking scratching off whatever non-stick material is on there and ingesting that, so you never want to do that. Also, your wooden spoons should never go in the dishwasher. They should always be hand washed. Next, we have some silicone spatulas. These are great because they go to higher temperatures if you're cooking with sugar, which goes very high in temperature, or if you're making some sort of paste, or if you're not even cooking with it and you're just, you know, trying to empty out a bowl. This helps get everything out and without having to use your fingers or a bowl scraper, which gets like so close and gets your fingers all dirty. So these are great for cooking and or cleaning out batters, things like that. That way you don't waste, you're not wasteful, and you're not burning yourself. And fun fact, these are actually used in professional kitchens. So if you have them in your kitchen, you look even more cool. These are some whisks. We have different types of whisks for different applications, different sizes for different applications. I actually have 5 different whisks, so these are only 2 out of the 5 that I have. Smaller whisks are for when you want to stir something or when you want to mix something without necessarily adding more air. The longer ones, or the larger ball head ones, are for adding more air. So if you're making a whipped cream, if you're making a meringue, you want to use, actually for a meringue you want to use this one, because you don't want to add too much air into your meringue too soon. So this one would be great for a meringue. Also made meringue by hand in culinary school. Fun fact. Next, we have some offset spatulas. These are great if you are decorating a cake. These are also great if you are making a rolled cake. You can help flatten your cake with these. These are great if you are lifting something. These are just multi-purpose, and it's great to have them if you have different sizes. Usually they are sold in different sizes, so that way you don't have to go and buy multiples. Next we have a grater, specifically a micro grater, and this is very sharp. You always want to be careful. This is great if you are grating some nutmeg, if you have some garlic, ginger. It has multi-purpose. It's great. Chocolate even. Anytime that you need shavings of something, you could use a microblade. Something that is mostly used for in most kitchens is for zesting. And it's the best tool for zesting because it only takes off, or at least it's the best at taking off just the zest and not the pith, which is the bitter white part. So get you one of these. These are great, but please be careful because they will take your skin and nails off with no mercy. Our final two items are piping bags and piping tips. So the piping bags that I have are these. I use a lot of piping bags. I actually use them weekly because I tend to make a lot of choux, or if you're decorating a cake, they're very helpful. And that comes with, well, they don't come with it, but if you have piping bags, then you would want some piping tips. And they're different sizes, different shapes, different applications. You have some for filling. You have some just for decorating. You have round ones. You have French tip ones. And I've been collecting these since before culinary school. I've had so many of these that I just love. Depending on the application, you may need different shapes or sizes. I've had this container for probably 5 years, and it's just been building and building and building, and I just love it because I know where my tips are and I can always go in here. Some I have multiple tips of the same just because I've needed to dress like 300 cupcakes, and I just don't want to have to go back and fill the same bag all the time. So I'll fill 3 bags and then just do as many, and then finish, do the second bag and the third bag, and then just refill those. And it just saves time. It helps to save time to be prepared. And this is what this whole video is about, just being prepared and knowing what you have in your kitchen, and just having the essentials but still being able to succeed in the kitchen. So there you have it, guys. These are my kitchen essentials, and I hope that this video was helpful to you. If so, please make sure to like this video and share it with somebody else who you think would enjoy it, or who is entering the kitchen and is not really sure what to get, or if somebody is moving. This is also a very good helpful video for someone who's trying to fill their kitchen with necessary items. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.